Morning, everyone. Again, I'm so grateful to have you all here worshiping with us today. I'm going to test your memory a little bit today to go back into your past. I'm going to ask you a question. When was the first time you realized that life wasn't fair? Maybe it's when your brother or sister got more candy than you did, right? Or your friends, they had a better bike, a better lunchbox, a better house, or maybe even a better family than you did. Maybe you lost someone early in your life and you realized it's not fair. Or maybe you got blamed for something you didn't do because, after all, they hit you first, right? However it was, whatever the circumstances, somehow we became aware that life was not fair, and we have spent our whole life trying to wrestle with that truth. In our souls, we still want a fair and a just world where everyone gets treated equally. That's what we want. That's what we dream about. That's what we aspire to. And yet, experience has taught us to manage our expectations. We see far too many things going wrong. We see people getting away with stuff, hurting one another, innocent people getting hurt because other people are out of control. Our news channels, they're filled with stories about allegations and arrests and lawsuits because somebody hasn't been fair to somebody. So we're left with this constant challenge. How do we keep believing? How do we keep hoping? How do we keep working for justice and fairness when our whole history of the human race has been filled so much with unfairness and injustice? We've been looking here at Rosa over the last few weeks at some psalms of praise that David is writing. He's left them for us, wrote them maybe some 3,000 years ago. And still we're finding inspiration for them. And we've been wondering how his acts of praise, how his songs of praise, how can they inspire us? It's not just that our praise is God's gift to him, it's also his gift to us. It changes our perspective, how we view the world, how we find motivation to carry on. And several of those psalms are about unfairness and injustice. Turns out that 3,000 years ago, it was also an unjust and an unfair world. And as David praises his Lord, he finds a perspective. He finds motivation to keep going, fighting for what's right, living for what's right. In Psalm 9, he is addressing that subject. We're going to look at a few verses from that psalm. I'd encourage you to go home and read through the whole thing, but we'll just focus on a couple verses. Verse 7, he says, "The Lord reigns forever. He has established his throne for judgment." This image of a judgment throne, it probably packed more punch in the days that David wrote it. We don't really have, at least in this society, thrones of judgment. We have what we call a courtroom. And if you've ever been in a courtroom, it can be an intimidating place, right? There you are, and this judge or this jury, they have total control of your future. They can decide whether they hurt you or help you. It's a very vulnerable place in which to live. And what David is telling us here is that we're all in that courtroom right now, whether we realize it or not. Right now, we're in God's courtroom. We're in that vulnerable position. A judge is watching. A righteous and holy judge is watching. He watches every day. He holds our eternal fate in his hands, whether we realize it or not. I don't know if you've been in a courtroom. I have not been in many. Your search committee required me to do a background check, which I passed, I'm happy to say. So my exposure to courtrooms is limited, but I have been in some, supporting folks from our community, and it is an intimidating place. It's a scary place. That judge has a lot of authority and power. And my lawyer friends tell me that it's good to know something about that judge, what that judge believes in, whether they have an agenda, whether there are things they like or don't like, things that bother them. It's good to know because that judge has a lot of control in the situation. Well, David wants us to know about that judge too. He tells us very clearly in verse 8, he rules the world in righteousness and judges the people with equity. It's good to know that. If you're in his courtroom right now, it's good to know what the standards are. And what David tells us here is that they are perfect standards, perfectly right and perfectly fair. See, here's the thing about this judge. He already knows all the facts of the case before the trial even begins. He knows the whole thing, beginning to end. Before anything starts, he already knows who's innocent and who's guilty, who hit whom first. He knows all that already. In his courtroom, there's no lies, no misrepresentation, no equivocation, no misstatement of the facts or misremembering of the facts. They're all there. Truly, in his courtroom, there is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because he is God. His courtroom is the ultimate no-spin zone. Nobody's getting away with anything there. He knows the whole story. And so when David praises his God, this is meant to encourage him. It's a reminder to him that he lives in that world and that judge is watching. Because sometimes if we forget that, we start to think that God isn't watching. We see all those evil people getting away with stuff. We see innocent people getting hurt. And we start to believe that God is not reigning anymore. But David praises God, brings him back to the focus to remind him that God is still in the courtroom. He is still watching. And it reminds him not to confuse God's justice with his mercy. See, God is waiting. He's not executing his judgments all now. He's not executing his sentences now. He's giving people time to listen, to think, to get their act right. He's giving people time to get engaged in the healing process. He's waiting. He's hoping. He's calling people to come back and hear him and know him again, to stop their bad ways and restore the way he wants them to live. He's waiting. But let's not be deceived. His judgments haven't changed. His law is still the law. The spiritual laws of the universe are still in effect. Sin leads to death. So let's not be confused. And when we lift up our praise to God, it brings us back to the center and reminds us all that there is still a God on the throne. That someday, in his way and in his time, all of us will be held accountable. We will get called before him in that no-spin zone, and he will mete out his justice. For those of us that are still hoping and dreaming about a fair world, we can take this as an assurance. It's not a naive hope. It's not wishful thinking. We can count on true fairness and true justice because of the God who sits on the throne. He has promised us that that is the result. That is what's going to happen. That should be an encouragement to us who are seeking to fight for that and not give up on that it is a dream worth pursuing. It's a reminder to us, too, that we should care about this God who cares about what's right. We should be living our life as if we care about what's right in the choices we make about what we say and what we do. Because our God cares about what's right, we should care about what's right. And we should be engaged in a world where things are going wrong, and we should be a part of that because our God is sitting in judgment and waiting for things to be made right. Getting engaged in the world to make things right. But if we're honest, if we consider ourselves here and think about entering that courtroom, it can be intimidating. I can't speak for you, but I'm not ready to go before a holy and righteous judge and have him pronounce sentence right now. Because by his holy standards, I'm going to fail. He's going to find me guilty. Where do we find comfort there? How is this encouragement for us to know that there's a God that reigns? Well, there's another side to God, a God that David also praises. Look at verse 9. The Lord is a refuge for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. See, this God who cares about what is right is also a God who cares about those who suffer because of wrong. He understands that this is a broken world. He cares about those who suffer because of people doing wrong things in his world. He understands this world can be a very, very oppressive and abusive place. And David wants us to understand the God he praises, he works in this world for those that are suffering because of wrong. That's the effect of sin. Sin in this world will create damage. See, here's the truth. There is no such thing as a victimless sin. Every sin hurts somebody. You may not see it right away, you might not know, but every sin hurts somebody. Sin is the opposite of love. Sin comes from a very broken place in our lives, from pride or from self-centeredness or from anger or from hurt or from abuse or from fear or neglect or indifference. Somewhere it comes from a broken place within us, and we do something that's non-love. We hurt somebody, sometimes unintentionally. And a lot of times we don't even know why we do it. It comes from a place in our past. See, this is the problem with sin. As we pile one broken thing on top of another, we create a cycle of hurt. We are hurt, we are hit, so we hit back and we hurt back, and we don't even know we're doing it. We're not sure how we got to be the person we are. We thought we should be better, we could be better, but somehow we ended up as we are. How do we break out of this cycle of repeatedly hurting one another, one generation after another? Well, David is praising God because he says there's a stronghold there. There's a God who understands and cares. There's a place we can go to stop the maddest and stop the cycle of hurting one another. There's a place to return for God, and God is there to restore and heal and forgive. He's not there just to condemn and send to death. No, He's there to restore and heal. And He's a God that wants to be engaged in our life. He's been there from the beginning. He's trying to guide us in a direction. Look at verse 10. Those who know your name trust in you. For you, Lord, have never forsaken those who seek you. See, sometimes when we think of justice, we have that image of the blindfolded justice who doesn't take into consideration all the factors. But David is saying the exact opposite about our Lord. He sees everything. He sees the whole history. He's been there from the beginning. He understands why we're as messed up as we are. He understands why we see things the way we do, why we make the decisions we do, why we take the actions we do, why we feel the way we do. He saw every time that someone hurt us, and He sees the consequences of how that makes us hurt others. He sees all that. Everything that's been done to us, everything that we've done, He's seen the whole thing. And what we hear now is if we want to break out of that cycle, follow, trust, know He is there to repair the damage. He is there to heal. He is there to restore. He is there to forgive. He is there to empower that change. We don't have to stay stuck in the cycle. Those who know the name of the Lord have a place to go to believe that this God cares for those who suffer, for us and for them. And so when we lift up the name of God and we praise the name of God as we come together, this should inspire us on two levels. One, not to stop trying to be right. We should be always trying to be right. Now, we're not going to be perfect. We're not going to get it all right. There are all kinds of reasons why we're going to fail, but that's no reason to stop trying. We can get better because God's Spirit is working in us. He is there to repair the damage. It also inspires us to keep fighting for those who are being hurt because of wrong. We care about those who are being hurt because of injustice because our God cares. Our God looks at those who are suffering and He cares. We should care. And we're not going to stop talking about it. We're going to not stop preaching it. We're going to not stop trying to work against it because our God wants to heal everyone. Justice is a cause for which we all should be concerned because God is concerned for those who hurt. So what's the point? We started off today asking that question: how do we stay motivated to work for what is right, to live for what is right, to believe that justice and fairness, they're still a goal that we should work toward? I hope what we've seen through David's psalm is that praise can give us a whole new perspective. Praising God in this area, it encourages us to be better people because our God cares about what's right. We should care about what's right for ourselves and for others. But it also should inspire us to care for others who are suffering because of wrong. We should stay engaged in that because our God cares about all that. All that is inspired by our praise. Sometimes in our society you hear the phrase, no justice, no peace. And that's true. But can I add a couple other phrases to that truth? I would also argue no mercy, no peace. We live in a broken world. Unless we learn to forgive one another and accept one another in our brokenness, and thus we're part of the caring group that wants to restore people, there will be no peace because people are not going to be perfect, including us. Without mercy, there is no peace. But I would say there's a third, even more important truth. In God, we have all of it: justice, peace, and mercy. In God, we have all of it: justice, peace, and mercy. He's calling us to follow Him. He will lead us through that difficult choices of when to give mercy and when to give grace and when to give forgiveness and when to hold people accountable. It's one package, and without His guidance, without His leadership, we'll make it up and we'll go in this direction or the other direction. We'll get off course and we won't bring the peace that we all want. God leads us in that direction. God leads us in that path because of who He is, the righteous judge, but also the merciful, caring, loving judge. So where do we go from here? What's the next steps? This week, can we focus on praising the God who cares about what is right and cares about those who suffer because it's wrong? Let's focus on praising that God and see if it doesn't motivate us to become a little bit better people. To do one act of the right thing this week, whether it's doing the right thing ourselves or caring about somebody that's being done wrong. Can we put that on our list? This week I want to care for someone who's being hurt because I want to reflect the care of our Heavenly Father. Let's praise God for His empowerment to do that. Let's pray. Father, we thank You so much for this reminder from Your Word through King David. That as we praise You, we are inspired to continue the fight for a fair and just world, but also a caring and merciful world that is there to forgive and heal and restore and bind up the wounds. Father, as we follow You, the model of Your Son who comes to teach us Your ways, to live Your ways, to make Your ways possible through Your death and resurrection, Father, teach us as disciples of Your Son to be these people who care about what is right and care for those who suffer because of wrong. We commit ourselves to be Your servants and the stewards of Your grace and Your truth. And in the name of Christ Jesus we pray. Amen.